all who are here. There's only one person here. Hi, Travis. And some of you may be watching
Sounded
on
really
TV
sad.
or on your computer. Welcome. This is a work session of Town Council. We have several items for discussion today. Please note, we will be done by 6. Work sessions are 4 to 6. So I know we've all done our homework and read all the great stuff that was sent out. And we do want to leave about 15, 20 minutes for EOTC. Right?
Oh, I think you want a little longer than that. It's
Half
next-
hour, 40
it's-
minutes?
Of all the discussions, that's the one we want to make sure all
Okay.
the time, so
Then you'll get to pace us.
we will.
I can
Okay,
talk
be
really
noted, the
fast.
council members are here. The only person not with us today is Billy Mattson, who has an excused absence. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Ann, you're first up.
I am. So, first of all, I apologize because I do know the drawings that you had in your packet are really small and hard to read, but I can step through and go through any questions you have. But the Town Park Station pedestrian project, as you recall, was identified as a priority project last budget season. And I've been working with SGM as the civil designer, taking basically conceptual design to a project that would go to bid. And we've also included on that project team Alpenglow, which is the lighting designer for the roundabout project, so we have consistency. So basically is what we've done is taken the drawing that was conceptual, didn't have all the dimensions to it, and put more of the required dimensions to the project, and that's what's on our screen here. So just to give you an orientation of the layout, here's the rec center parking lot, Town Park Station, Snowmass Club Drive, and here's the bus area that our transit system utilizes right now. The current bus stop for RAFTA is right where my hand is, or actually I probably could use a pointer. That's better. There, and the other down valley bus stop is here. And the current crosswalk is at this location, and I think we've all realized that, one, lighting is a challenge in this area, and two, that's not the desired location for a large amount of people using this area. So we get that sheet flow effect, which is not a safe design. So what we've done is looked at the geometry of the bus stops and used the criteria of the desired line of having pedestrians cross behind the back of the buses, and basically are looking at keeping the existing bus shelter on the south side of the road and then putting in the RAFTA design guideline bus stop here, putting in the crosswalk here that would come to the center landscaped area, and then it would continue to line up straight with Town Park Station, basically right underneath the information signs. On this side would be the new RAFTA bus stop. We have chosen to not put a bulb out here to protect that, but to deal with it as concrete. And then take out this existing bus stop. And right now, here is the bus stop, as well as there's a turning lane here. And so this would get reduced to take out that bus stop, but we would still propose to keep a short 15-minute parking area here, because we've incorporated some 15-minute information parking here and have done some signage at the entrance to the rec center. But it's confusing. I mean, people aren't looking at that right away, and they don't
read it.
right, and they're past it. So in order to not mix buses with people that would like to get information, we're proposing this as the location for that short-term come in and extending that sidewalk to connect to the existing sidewalk to be able to come and use guest services. So, and then the other part of it in here that we've included, which is just generally needs a little fine tweaking, and it would probably be an alternate on the bid project to see where things come in, is the sidewalk connection from Town Park Station along back of curb here, and then coming through. We'd probably needle it. We might have to lose a tree here to kind of do a little bit more like not straight arrowed engineering concrete, that's what I call it. So that's one of those recommendations that had come out to make that connection to still be able to use the tunnel in there. So David Peckler and other staff members, PD, have reviewed this. We still need to go through the final design approval with RAFTA on that. And then the other part of the design project would be to do the lighting, and that's what those next images were.
And before you go into the lighting.
Yep.
The parking spots that are going to fill in where the current bus stop,
Right.
into town bus stop is, are they parallel or they head in?
They are parallel with the road, so,
In other words, they're parallel parked, cars are gonna be parallel parked.
right,
rather
along
than
the
he-
edge of the road there.
Okay.
Yep. So
Okay.
I believe, I have to look at the dimensions, but I think it's 2 stalls in there, and that's generally what we see.
So the current lane that's there,
Right, this lane.
yeah,
That turn lane, it really isn't utilized. Majority of our, and I can let, David, you can talk about this, but majority of our transit movements are coming here and using this center turn pocket right here
yeah,
and turning into our location here.
right.
RAFTA doesn't turn right to go into there. They stop here. So there's a really low amount of traffic count. Is there something I'm missing on that right turn? This one right here, this,
Yeah, it was just a bus stop, pullout, so it wasn't really a right turn per se.
but there is, it is signed for right turn, but it's not utilized. So we're trying to use some of those concepts of narrowing the width so that it has that more safe feeling of pedestrian crossings as
Does
well as
the
traffic
bike
calming.
path come up any further than the existing? I didn't see that on there.
Bike path is right here.
But that, I mean, from the other side of the road, where does it cross the road?
It
There
doesn't.
isn't.
It stops down at the recreation
Well,
center,
that's- Okay.
Yeah.
so
But
we
that
still have-
crossing is still
Still have to
there.
cross the road.
down there. Yeah. So we're focusing this project on this location. The other thing to talk about is, we sit here and watch kind of the social engineering or where people are going. 2 things is, we'll make sure that this is designed correct so that when special events or weather conditions require RAFTA to come here and turn around and go, that we have the right amount of turning radiuses for the buses. And then secondly, as we continue to watch this location, it may lend itself in the future to be a whole pedestrian area. But right now, we're recommending it just be this pedestrian crossing with the enhancements of the location. So we occasionally see, people coming in this sidewalk and crossing here, and that would be a further enhancement. We would have to do sidewalk here. But at this point, we would like to just recommend this is the improvement project. And
Yeah, because right now they're crossing in a diagonal. They're starting
Right.
there and
They're-
they're going
This.
to,
Yeah.
no, like further. They're going to where that bus inlet is, the old bus inlet.
This here,
No, on the other side.
here.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
they're
they're
going like
literally
that.
crossing
Yeah.
a huge amount of street on a diagonal.
Question for you on the RAFTA, where the new RAFTA stop is. So, is that rock? and
Concrete.
Concrete, and so where is the RAFTA bus going to pull into?
They're gonna be right here. So your through lane will be striped and with arrows on it, that is continue to go.
And
Okay.
that'll be
Straight
single
through.
lane coming through.
You got it. Which
And
it is
so-
right now.
Well, the point is, so you got the bus to stop, you're gonna have a crosswalk. Is the pedestrian going in front of the bus or behind the bus?
Behind the bus.
Behind the bus.
Yep. But it is stage size-wise for 2 buses in that scenario. But they come to the first stop first. And then they scooch the next one up.
And is there enough space, or, I guess you've
That second bus?
calculated, not for the 2 buses, but when the buses start to pull out, they've got to pull into the
Traffic.
through lane,
Correct,
right?
right.
They still
So-
have the merge lane.
They still have this. They can still go up here.
That's the same merge lane that there is now?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So they have their distance to continue and then get over.
So let's talk about this information area. You're saying 3 cars can get in there?
2.
2. How often does the 15-minute used now?
Depends on
You'd
the
have to
day.
ask marketing, but we realize that this is a potential to add a little better some more access to that building for people that missed the sign and don't really want to go into the parking lot.
Turn around and come
And they
back.
go through the bus area. I mean, I see it happen all the time.
Right.
They do.
They miss it, so they go through the bus area to turn around.
Or they park in,
They come right here.
they come right there, they get out of their car and then go in. I see it all the time during ski season and when we have heavy visitors.
So we're trying
That'll
to
still
encourage
continue.
this location.
It'll still continue.
It probably will.
Because that could be inconvenient. Oh, it's snowy, it's icy, I'm just gonna pull in here.
Is there any way that we can incorporate those two spaces in there to make it more convenient for people to park in there? Clint?
David, answer that.
David? I'm
No
just,
and
it's a
hell
question.
no.
No?
That's why I let David answer it.
The friendliest thing is to pull into that
I'm
parking
sorry.
lot and use the 215, there's more than two, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4.
Well, but the problem is, when,
You miss it.
when they hit the roundabout, and they've come to Snowmass for the first time, they're totally confused at the roundabout, and then they've gone a little further, and then to pull into the parking lot, they've already passed the parking lot.
Well, there's that great big eye sign, if you'd only read about 20 things on that one
Well,
sign.
They don't, and.
I wouldn't either, would you?
Right, so then they see the information center, oh, there's the information center.
I'll
At
pull
that
in.
point, they probably already passed the 2 parallel parking spots. They see the big old wide open lane, and they have no idea that the shuttles are gonna be following them in like
Well,
5
with
minutes.
the curbing is, we can paint the curbing red in the bus depot, and we can do yellow for pickup, drop-off parking to kind of help with that. There's no perfect solution.
So on the signage for that, what do we have proposed for the signage for those 2 parallel spots? I mean, can we,
It'd be the information signage, and we do some pre-warning signs on that, so.
That would make sense.
do the best we can?
We're trying to use,
It's
Direct.
better than it is, but it ain't perfect.
right, and we're trying to use a universal symbol so that it's multilingual.
What would be the universal symbol for, put it here?
X marks the spot,
There you go.
so. Okay, you want me to move?
Here, move on.
Next one, you have a, okay. So this drawing, let me blow this up. Is to show the existing lights versus the proposed lights. And the next drawing, which is the photometrics, it gets into a lot of detail here. But existing right now, we have a light here, ERs are existing, okay? There's another ER.
If you can read it.
I know. Here, you
Need a
just follow me.
magnet.
Follow me. Here's another one at this, and this is where that crosswalk is right now. And then, one light here. So what's being proposed is to add the lights at the crosswalk, pre the crosswalk so that you, sorry, that needs to go on that side. I need to talk to him about that. I just realized that. So you illuminate the pedestrian and, all those. And so S2 is a double head and S1 is a single head light. We are not proposing to do these additional lights at this location. Right now, we just, when I initially talked about it, I said what would be the master plan, and then we can phase as we go. So that's just, we can go back and forth on this one.
I'm sorry, Ann, I was writing, what's not being proposed at this point?
The S
Around
ones on
the-
here.
Around the roundabout?
Yeah, so we have, some existing here, and at the crosswalk here and here, but we're not proposing to supplement those.
Are those ones around the roundabout, I know you're not proposing them right now, but are they similar to like what you see at the other roundabout?
They are, but, so we have, they are the standard detail, and I can show you the light if you want, or I've got Google, we can go look at it too. They're the same light poles that we have, because we're trying to be consistent in our design standards. But we have already converted these to LEDs. However, they are a different LED than was put in, at the roundabout. The ones that were put in the roundabout are manufacturer. These were a retrofit, and so we would like to propose that we go with the manufacturer retrofit, so we have consistency. So that is one of the project details we're looking at doing. And that's not a large change-out, but, I think it would be consistent to have consistent parts and pieces.
And I guess, issues for me right now, currently, is that coming out of the Club Drive,
Right here.
that road, that corner is very dark.
It is, and it has no lights right there, so we're proposing one there right at that intersection.
You are proposing
Yep, right
one
there.
there in addition to one
In
at-
addition, at the crosswalk.
at the crosswalk.
And one for the bus shelter. So we're, actually have 3 in there. And let me go to this next drawing. I did not bring you, and I probably should, I apologize. The drawing that shows existing photometrics versus proposed. But basically, this is a plan that shows, and it's a little bit of an art, so don't get too dialed in on it. But basically, it shows the lighting patterns. So this is what would be proposed with the new lights in this location. So the summary of it is basically there's a consistently lit area that accentuates that it's, high activity, there's pedestrians, there's a lot of things going on, beware.
That level of brightness compared to the Brush Creek and Wood Road roundabout is?
Similar, because we're trying to have this
That's cool.
0.1 foot candles, or 1.0, I can't remember which way it is. But that's the lighting measurement. And I should have brought that other drawing, but this is existing conditions. If we were to put the rest of these in here that showed on that plan, it would basically connect this lighting in here so we wouldn't have like this hot spot, low spot, hot spot. We can consider that, but I'm looking right now at the budget that we've approved to just focus on this area and then continue to do these checks on it. Is it what we all intended?
Does all of this lighting meet the night sky
Yes.
standard? Okay.
Yep, so, it's all downcast, it meets all the
Okay.
design standards there.
Okay.
So the other thing that we're proposing, and Bob, I think you had asked this question about smart technology, that we would propose to put in this location is, I'm gonna go back to this, drawing here. Is, basically, they have a feature that you can, it's an add-on to our existing lights, it's like a puck on top of it. It won't be, visible unless you really are aware of it. And basically, it has a Wi-Fi connection that allows us to have smart technology on the lights, and that we can do programmable settings on these lights. Whether it be we're monitoring it for damages or lights going out, we dial into the program and then able to monitor what's going on. The other part of it, though, is we can also control those and even set some more smart technology to it, as taking it from the level that it's at, say, at 5 o'clock in the wintertime, to a lower level at 2 a.m. after the bar is closed, and have it still lit up, consistent lighting, but maybe a little lower level. So we could play with that. So we're proposing to do that because we would like to go to that science with all of the lights in the village at some
So you
point.
to put it on each light?
Yeah, it's a $400 add-on to the lights, and then there is a controller program that we'd log in through the internet to control the lights, and I shall monitor it as well. So, it was, and I thank you for that, because I learned a
Yeah.
lot studying that. But they've done it at Willits, they've done it, Carbondale has done it. We can also monitor a little bit of the energy use a little bit better, so it's got good features to it. So we would propose to put that in as part of this project.
Are we doing the blinking thing?
We are proposing to do
Is it sound similar to the issues they've got with the chirping over in Aspen?
No,
No.
we're not going to audible
Thank you.
detection.
Thank you. That would not work.
So, just a reminder on
Here on Farway Road.
You
what
get the
are,
complaints, buddy.
this is our standard light detail that we have. They're at the height that we can do banners on them. These would not have banners, but we would propose that you have these punched so that you could put that, light bar there, and there's a push button here, and then there would be pedestrian sign, the standard pedestrian sign on there. And that would be those 2 locations that are at the crosswalk, right here, those 2. The other feature that we're looking at adding on the electrical side of things is a light inside of the bus shelter. And what they're going to, as far as Rafton, we would like to move towards that as well, is it's motion censored, so that when it's occupied, and I don't know the answer if you can push button it too, but if it's occupied, it illuminates the bus shelter. It helps with sensing that someone's in the bus shelter instead of doing the old reflector waiver thing going on. So we proposed that as, since we're doing all this work in this area,
That's good.
so.
This looks great.
So timeline is, we've got the design to this point. We are trying to determine, with this, it would take out this crosswalk. It would have, basically, we're looking at the asphalt treatments on, is it milling this whole area, cutting this in? So we're looking at those different options as far as budget. Just so you know, this road is in our 5-year plan to get milled and overlay. You can start see some of the rutting taking place down here when you're driving through the roundabout. So I'm kind of taking a couple perspectives on phasing on this, on the asphalt side. But we'd like to get it out to bid as soon as we get the okay from RAFTA on the, making sure that there meets their design on the bus stops, and still go out to bid for construction this fall.
And I guess on the current crosswalk, which is obviously, which the way it is constructed
Where was it?
looks different than the rest of the road, right?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that you might not take that red stone out at this
No,
point?
I would take the red stone out because you don't want to confuse it.
Right.
Yep, so this would be removal of this. What I'm trying to determine is what's my limits on asphalt. So I know I'd have a patch here no matter what,
Yeah.
and do I go from here and patch it all the way to this
Oh,
other
I
crosswalk?
see.
It's just my limits of
I see.
asphalt repairs.
Is that red material, is that reusable for the new crosswalk?
No.
No.
It's actually getting pitted pretty bad because of snow removal and chemicals and things like that coming in the village. So it needs treatment, it needs to get removed. And then we would do the same differentiation in color here and probably band it with the white as well, white concrete, so you have a visual.
Is there a better product than that would hold up? Okay,
It's just the amount of traffic,
okay.
yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're gonna make that decision when you see the bids come in.
Yeah.
And, if they come in great, you can probably get a lot more asphalt down. If they come in super tight, we'll probably do a little less asphalt.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when we're gonna bid this, just so you know, is because I'm very cognizant of construction schedules, and the lessons we're learning is, don't have big restrictions on your construction. I probably will have an alternate to complete by June 30th of next year, just to see if my price differential from this fall to next spring is, major.
So you're putting that fence back in,
This,
that opening?
yes. Oh, we'll close that off, because
Okay.
this will no longer be a crossing, so we'll eliminate this and get rid of that. And then there's a fence opening down there. I don't know, you mean move down? I know.
So
Travis,
like, what about,
look
like,
at-
I know when they do Jazz Fest and stuff, they cross people there. Is that gonna impact that?
They will just incorporate this into their project. We talked about that, and it just will they've been talking about changing some of the operations anyways, and just work with what is in place.
And so,
fence-
and how
fence
much of a
panels come out, too.
distance is it from the new crossing to the only other place you can cross by the rec center? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, so you're talking down here?
Yeah,
Let me, oh,
because those are really the only two places they can cross, right?
that's right. Travis? Where'd I go? Oh, there we go.
So the other tab.
Okay. Go here?
Aren't you looking here for the measurement?
Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, no, we don't want that. Go here. Can I go here?
About that much, Lisa.
It's,
I think
there we go. Let me zoom in. So you're talking about this crossing here?
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, someone could cross at where the rec center drive is, but then they'd hit the fence, right?
There's an opening right there.
There is an opening,
I think
but
there
it's
is.
not a sanctioned crosswalk.
No, yeah. I mean, I think we should continue to look at all these. We've improved some and just continue
Yeah.
to monitor, but,
Okay.
so. All clear?
All clear for
Yeah,
me.
thank you so much.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Anything else, Ann? You guys busy?
Oh, it's all good.
All good?
All good. I don't know, I think you probably saw Clint's update. I'll do the 10-second construction updates if you want.
Okay, why don't you go
Okay.
ahead?
The Owl Creek Trail is finished.
Yeah, you did a beautiful job, by the way.
We added a little bit extra on that,
Yeah.
changed it from another project just because I was looking at constructability on that one. So that's open, and we awarded the Brush Creek Trail on Friday. So I'm waiting for that construction schedule to come out. That will go from the underpass at the Recreation Center to up at Sinclair.
That's good.
Is it Sinclair Road? Yeah, right where it comes up. And we may have a little bit further, there's a patch there, so we're trying to use the dollars to repair sections, but also get maintenance on some other things. So that will be either the end of this month or at least by the end of July, beginning August.
Whose 40-mile-an-hour radar is on Brush Creek? Is that the county or is that ours?
I haven't looked.
That's
On the
gotta be
way-
the
on-
county.
who's the
It's
county?
not in our,
It's
it's
in-
not in the limits.
Yeah,
Right now, what I see
Oh,
happening
down.
on Highline Road is when the dump trucks turn on Highline Road, they nail it, and they're flying. So I think we need a little bit more control on Highline Road of some of the dump trucks, because they're coming up empty, headed for the firehouse or wherever they're going to, and they're trying to get there in a hurry. And I've been almost cut off, and I know this guy wasn't going 30 miles an hour. He had to be going 45 miles an hour, and he wasn't wasting any time. And he almost turned on Owl Creek Road on two wheels. He was going so fast.
We can talk to PD, and we've got our own speed trailer on that.
Okay, 'cause I think Highline Road needs to be a little bit more monitored.
Sure. The other thing is just to follow up on that, the fire station project has been great to work with on a staff perspective. As you can see, they put a patch back, temporary patch. Sometimes we have to beg to get those things back. They've been timely. There will be a one-day closure in July, and we're working on that messaging and that coordination, and it's due to the sewer line crossing, but it shouldn't be a problem, so. Road improvements start on Wednesday, and our crew's been working their butts off to get the tie-ins to work, and so that should be done fairly quickly. Next week, we should be wrapped up with that project. And then, as you can see, the landscapers for the roundabout project are here, and they should be done by July 1, maybe a little bit late, just because we've been coordinating the art installation project. And that is looking like June 27th.
Right.
So,
Right.
everything's going smooth. So, that's it.
Back to the-
Yeah, sorry, knock on wood.
Thank you, Ann.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you very, very much. Our next item is EOTC. David, you're up.
thank you, council, for taking the time to chat over things. You should have received your EOTC packets on Thursday. And
I looked at
the,
it through iLegislate, that's the reason why it's not here.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sequence that I listed in my memo were a little bit out of what's going on in the actual agenda item. However, most of the main topics are covered there. It's going to be a pretty long meeting. It's got a lot on there. John Kruger is adding a meeting date in September, so that's to facilitate the final report on the Upper Valley Mobility Study. So hopefully everyone can make that date. Tom Oken will give you a quick snapshot of the actuals for 2016 and what they see as the current budget for the EOTC. Major item that you might want to discuss is the battery electric bus program. And I'm sorry to hand out something at the 11th hour, but, okay.
We just got this today.
We got a request from RAFTA today to write a letter of support for the this low-no grant that they're applying for to finance the electric bus purchases that are contemplated both in the Upper Valley Mobility Study, the Integrated Transportation System Plan, and in your EOTC packet. So if you were to look on page, oops, he doesn't have page numbers. The second, it's 1, 2, 3. It's the fifth item on your EOTC packet behind the budget. This is the request from RAFTA to support this electric vehicle purchase.
Page 9 of 32.
There you go. That issue for us, which is a little bit, is they're asking for a $500,000 contribution from EOTC. And you can see the budget for the low no grant. At present, flipping too many pages. At present, in the budget update from Tom Oken, in 2017, you have a $267,000 surplus, revenues over expenditures, if you will. You do have a robust fund balance of almost $8 million in the UTC budget, but expenditures or revenues over expenditures, you only have about $267,000 to play with. So I think you should talk a little bit about whether you want to support this. This has, as I said before, it's mentioned within the Upper Valley Mobility Study, the Integrated Transportation System Plan, and it's been talked about on occasion. So, Marky, I know you discussed it at the meeting
RAFTA board
before.
meeting last week, and I did not vote for it.
Okay.
It did pass, but I did not vote for it.
I mean, I think.
David?
Because I felt that we needed it. Let me finish. I basically stated that to bring this through EOTC and assume it will pass through EOTC, which was contemplated. I said, right now, it's Snowmass Village, we talked about it the prior Monday night at Town Council, and it did not sit positively. What does it do for Snowmass? And we did the ITSP, and we're talking $500,000 there. We don't have that report, and all of a sudden now we're doing electric buses. And how are we gonna use 4 in Aspen, and then other 4? Go into the stock? What does that do for our town?
I thought that it said in something that I read that 2 of them were for the Snowmass route.
That was not really that well discussed last week.
Oh, because I read
It
it
is
somewhere.
in there that 2 will be
Yeah.
Right,
targeting.
but it doesn't say that in that email that Clint got. It says regional Aspen, well, City of Aspen and regional roads. I mean, I guess if that is Snowmass, but, I mean, if we're giving the money, then I think that it,
Well, and that's, to the broader, I mean, I think the point that the mayor's making, down a couple, 5 items, so I'm jumping around on the EOTC agenda a second, but, we want to bring back up again, increased levels of service for the regional service to the village.
Right.
right.
And,
I brought that up.
And RAFTA has got their number, we've got our number, and I'm gonna blow it, but it's
298.
close to $300,000 a year, say, for easy math. And if it can all be done, then it's great. But at some point, it's, electric buses for Aspen or increased service for the village or, some combination thereof. And I think as a board, as the OTC, we've got to kind of spark that discussion. And if you want to be supportive of electric buses for all the right reasons, great. But that shouldn't be in lieu of the opportunity for improved service to the village, because we can all benefit from these things. And that's not a discussion that's been had, and you will see eyes roll when we have that discussion.
Oh, yeah, that brings me back to many years ago, and Dave knows this discussion real well, when we wanted to do free bus service during the off-season, and Snowmass had to pay for it.
David, this $250,000 projected revenue over expense, is that after monies go into the Snowmass fund, whatever
That's how
that
No,
thing
the
is called?
fund balances are allocated, it is part of what is repaying the fund balances.
So the fund balance the repayment has to come out of that 250?
Mhm.
So essentially, unless we're looking to extend the time that it takes to repay the fund, there's no reason to really,
No money.
there's no money for this.
Oh,
Well, I mean, there's money because there's reserves.
Yeah, if you wanted to,
say you don't have a project lined up anyhow, so we've got a project lined up, and I'm not arguing for
Yeah.
it, but what would be articulated is, we've got a project, you don't, let's go ahead and do it, and what's the matter if you get bumped back a year? And that, it's something to be discussed for sure. But I think the broader issue is, if the levels of service are gonna increase for, someone else in the OTC with electric buses, it's not a capacity increase, but it's a level of service with the quiet and all that kind of thing. We think that the village level of service needs to be remembered as well, and if we play ball going forward, good regional partnerships, please remember that when we get to these other questions, because there's a $300,000 expense coming down here just to get us up to not even on par with the rest of the regional service, but to get us beyond 30-minute service that we have now. It gets us closer, but not necessarily where everybody else is at.
I think, in kind of answering your question a little bit, it's gonna muddy it more than help you, but you're looking at the 20.
It's a work session, you can.
Yeah, it's a 2017 revenues over expenditures that get you to the 267. The RAFTA service, no one's contemplating instituting it in 2017, but we are looking to do that beginning in 2018. In 2018, two items on there that have already been discussed. Let me back up for a moment. So, given that you have almost $8 million in reserve balance, you could look at the Lono electric bus purchase as a capital investment and go into your reserves to make that happen. Unlike usually the way you view an operating expense. When you move into 2018, you have the park and ride improvements tied to a FLAP grant, which is a federal land access grant, to make improvements at Brush Creek and 82 of $3.9 million. And then you also have $800,000 to begin design work and study of the Buttermilk underpass, pedestrian underpass. So in 2018, you actually have a negative fund balance of 1.3 million. So when you're talking about adding the operational expense, that would push that to over 1.5.
Yeah, no further.
Yeah.
Does
Well, it
the
sounds
20
like it sounds like it's time to reprioritize all these projects over the next couple of years.
The 1.3, does it have the increased service for snowmass in it? I didn't think so.
No, not at this time, no.
It was discussed last week briefly at the RAFTA meeting.
And so the last EOTC was the first time we introduced it. Well, I shouldn't say the first time, but in recent history, it was introduced. What we promised the last time was we bring back numbers, so the numbers are here this time. And so that could be part of hopefully the budget discussion that's coming in whenever the next meeting's set,
So we need to
September.
focus on, let's look at all the projects
And
sitting on the table.
so we're not
and
saying,
where's the
hey,
funding.
don't say no to anything, but I think the discussion needs to be brought up by you all. It's like, well, this is great, but we've also got this request that's coming down, and needs to be remembered that this service level is a legitimate request from us to get us closer to service levels that other folks get to enjoy.
Well, it gets into that argument, nice to do versus need to do.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that there's also the no fare service subsidy that's about 600,000. That if you went back to regional service being paid, Aspen to Snowmass being whatever it was, $4, $5,
Yep.
then you would create some flexibility, possibly. But that'd be a big game change, because it's a very well-received public program. But I mention it because somebody's gonna bring it up. And as some of your counterparts will perceive that was your wish.
Yeah.
To the betterment of all, but it was, they'll somehow look at that as, that's why you paid for off-season service.
Yeah,
So I just bring it up,
well, we know it's there.
it's there, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be there.
So I think what you really kind of you could support this letter. It could go after the grant funding. In one of Dan's memos, it also talked about, well, if the EOTC wasn't a participant, they would boost the grant request ask, which still got them to like a 50-50 grant request, which in the federal world, that's pretty good. Most times people are looking for 80-20, 80 federal, 20 local. So if you're willing to pony up half the money, you might be able to ride through there, but On the other side of the coin, it looks very good on a grant application when you have multiple jurisdictions willing to contribute to the program. Now, you are all three part of RAFTA, and so, that's there, but
You're kind of coming back to the call for twice.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But the vehicles are targeting Aspen and the Aspen Ski Company services and Snowmass because the range on the batteries it's a technology that's still evolving, and you probably get about 250 miles. So if you're running a service program between Aspen and Snowmass, you might stay within the range of the battery's capacity. If you go all the way down to Glenwood Springs, you probably are gonna be beyond that capacity, and so that's why it fits sort of in the Upper Valley.
Well, tell me about the charging station. There's something about a charging station, and the bus has to sit at a charging station.
There's a number of possibilities that when a bus dwells at, has its dwell time, whether it's at Ruby Park, its destination, let's say the mall, RAFTA Transit Facility, you could recharge the vehicle while it sits there, and in a half an hour, you might get a couple more miles. And if you do this on every end, then you're gonna extend the range of that vehicle. So it might not be 250, it might be now 300 miles. That could be what they call a catenary system, which is an overhead. There's a device on the top of the bus that makes contact with a live wire, and that charges the vehicle. Or there's what they now have are inductive chargers. A plate is put into the ground, literally. You can walk across it, you can do a lot of stuff, but when a bus pulls over on top of it through science, it can charge the bus from underneath. So you don't have the visual impact of catenary systems, you don't have all of those aspects going on. It's literally charging the bus from below. It's expensive, but it's doable.
I don't know if those charging stations were included in this grant.
There were certain, again, when you look on, I wish I had can you see where this is at the end of Dan's, it's page 4 of Dan's memo? Because you have the budget there, so you gotta go down.
Yeah, it's the very last page.
Very last page, there is, charging stations, 2 each. Unit cost 80,000 for a 320, and then the infrastructure installation for them. What page is it for them?
Well, I got it set up the same way you do. I didn't pull it up like
Okay,
that.
okay. Sorry, I can't direct you
So
specifically to
only
that.
3 charging stations with 8 buses.
Now, 4 charging stations.
4. They're probably looking at, like I said, maybe 2 would be at Ruby Park, maybe 1 would be at Snowmass, 1 would be at Buttermilk. So when the bus is going to or from a location, if it sits there a while, it's going to get charged up a little bit, so it extends its ability to be in service.
Yeah, but that also puts them in a position where if you're gonna charge something overnight, right, you've gotta be at one of these 3 places.
No, overnight charging would be done at probably the Aspen Maintenance Facility.
Oh, okay.
And in the 900,000 per vehicle, they come with their overnight charging equipment.
Ah, all right, okay,
So, yeah, that would be a bit different.
thank you.
You want to touch on the travel pattern analysis and the mobility study?
Well,
Okay.
I had one more question relative to this, the budget that we're just talking about and everything on the list. The cost to do the Meralt, if we go that way, the straight shot or whatever they're talking about in the upper mobility study,
Yeah,
that's a recommendation. And I
In
think
the-
the price, that the price on that was,
103
oh,
million.
103.
I
It's what
don't,
it costs to
that's not
build a
on this
bridge.
list of priorities, or is that already reserved for in the entrance to Aspen Fund?
I guess it could be. It is the entrance to Aspen project.
Okay. Thank you.
But they would have to approve using the open space for a bus BRT lane. It has the approval for LRT, the light rail,
But it doesn't
but
for-
doesn't have it for, and that's a change in circumstance. I did want to say one thing again about the letter of support. You could sign it, you could let that move forward, and then see how other things.
I'm gonna wait till
Play it.
Friday, and if it's all right, I'll see what happens Thursday night, and I'll just get a hold of Maine on Friday and see how stuff rolls.
Okay. The Upper Valley Mobility Study, well, actually, you're talking about the Valley Travel Patterns Analysis? Yeah. I'm gonna switch them around. The Upper Valley Mobility Study will be an update on where that study is to date. It's completing its first phase. Ralph Toprani, you've had a number of presentations by him. This is a continuation of that. The Upper Valley Travel Pattern Analysis, Brian Pettit of Picken County is interested in moving forward with the detailed, this is like a travel pattern study. The Upper Valley Mobility Study, the AirSage data that we gathered, we were just using it and looking at it and studying it for transit purposes
Right.
only. You can take that data and you can look and see like where are pedestrians, where are cars, and broken out by user type, which would be guest, resident, or employee. So it would be a robust amount of data, but the initial price tag for that is somewhere in the 180,000. We approached CDOT and discussed with them their interest in possibly helping with that data collection. CDOT has ponied up 50,000 for that to help. And what Brian has done is approach the Aspen Institute, who has been conducting the community forum on this whole study of the entrance to Aspen, if you will. They are making it sound like they would support half of that study at 67,000. So the request to EOTC would be for the balance of that study.
And what are we gonna do with the results?
The results are gonna tell you a lot about how people move around in the Upper Valley. Not only, it would be
So,
as much like what Glenwood Springs found out, Grand Avenue Bridge, you know, it's really all those people going to Aspen that are really the
and they found out that
problem.
wasn't true.
They found out that wasn't true, and there are many who believe that the problem at the entrance to Aspen are all those employees coming into town, and that may not be true. It could be Snowmass people going to Aspen. It could be Aspen people going to ABC. It could be,
And what
Parents
difference, what,
couldn't.
what
What
difference
difference?
does it make? The traffic is still the traffic.
because it would help you target more effectively what your transit or alternative solutions are going to be. Say, for example, where do I put a WeCycle location that is more effective to get people not to drive their car? Where would I put a circulator route for Aspen so that it would capture the most people trying to get their kids to the school and Aspen School? Or those are the kind of things you could glean from the data that you make guesses at now. I know you want to make sure there's the return on investment, bang for your buck. I'm not sure how to answer that question for you.
I think it's a fair question, is what are we gonna do with it?
I think
What are
it's
you
the right
really gonna do?
question.
What's the outcome?
I mean, we've spent a tremendous amount of money, not just EOTC, but lots of entities in the valley spend a tremendous amount of money on this question of entrance to Aspen and have yet to do anything about it. At some point, one has to just say, I gotta make a decision given the best information I've got, and do your best.
I don't think it, as I tried to explain, I don't think it's entirely confined to understanding something about the entrance to Aspen. I think it helps you with the alternatives that you're programming
I think,
to effectively apply them.
I think, David, I'm not necessarily expressing a dislike for this particular ask, but a frustration that with, the end of the tunnel never seems to lighten up.
I could agree with that, yeah.
You know,
I voted on an entrance to Aspen question once a long time ago,
this discussion has gone.
And you and I both had hair back then.
and I had hair back then.
I'm not even gonna go there, but I mean, but, you know, at one point, the vote was up to the people in Aspen at that time, and they turned it down, correct?
That's a confusing, complicated question.
Yes, it is.
So I would say there's been
Record of
support for
decision.
different parts of the record of
Yeah.
decision,
Yeah.
and it depends on how you want to look at that to answer it.
Well, the way I would like to see it answered is that, going along with Bob, this has been such a long decision, and nothing's been done about it, and who actually has the power to say, we're gonna go forward with this? Is it a county vote now, or is it a vote at all? It's probably not, it's just the EOTC decision to go forward with this? Now, we've got the okay for light rail.
I don't
and
think
the-
you're gonna ever get to vote on it. And I'm the new guy, but it's gonna be the city of Aspen that's gonna be
City of
making that
Aspen.
decision largely. The county might,
So we're back to the same thing again, okay? So why are we wasting all this money on studies? Why not just put it towards the people in Aspen now and find out if we should go even any further with it? I think it's a waste.
and I'm not gonna argue with you. I mean, I think my gut's right there with yours, but just what you're gonna hear back is, you know, this is the most partnership you're gonna see in a study like this. Getting two other organizations to pay for 2/3 of it, there's value in that. And then David's answer of, and it's gonna give you that much more information that if it doesn't get solved, at least we could be able to figure out how to maybe make it less worse than it is right now. And those are the pitches you're gonna hear.
And I don't buy into any of them, I'm sorry. I mean, because we all know that if there's a school day happening, and you happen to be, if you happen to have a dentist appointment in town, at 8:15, 8:30, you know you've gotta leave early enough because of the school traffic. And, you know, if you're going in on a Saturday morning, no problem, right? So, you know, if you're smart enough to know what the habits are and how to go around, all you have to do is hang out on McLean Flats Road during the week and see how many people already know those traffic patterns, and they turn there by Cozy Point.
Yep.
And off they go, and most of the Pickett County sheriffs are up there monitoring everybody's speed, and people in McLean Flats are, you know, Highway 82B are living on it, so I don't know what the answer is. I don't think there is an answer, and I don't buy into it. And I'm
And I
not a
think-
fan of it until somebody in Aspen will say, you know, yeah, let's all do this for everybody in the valley. They're not gonna do this for everybody in the valley. I think we're wasting our money.
And what I hear you saying is, more information is not gonna help you solve a political
Correct.
problem.
Correct.
This is not an issue of we don't have enough facts. You gotta
I
make a
don't think we
decision.
need any more information. I don't think we need to waste any more
I
money.
mean, I think you hit it right on the head. It's a political problem. It's not a transit problem. It's a political problem at this point.
And I think we could have as many EOTC meetings and as many studies done as everybody wants to spend the money on, and hire more experts and figure out where everybody's cell phones are, and if they're in a car, if they're in a bus, wherever they are. But I don't think it makes a difference. It's not gonna change until the people in that town decide, we need to make this better for everybody that's coming here. But they're not gonna do that. I don't believe they're gonna do that.
Well, you know, you look at the upper mobility study that we spent, not quite $500,000, but
Right.
close to. And one of the solutions was light rail. So we could have spared that entire expense
But it was,
by having someone to project what it would cost per mile for that, for light rail. Well, we all know when the answer came back, it was sticker shock. So,
Absolutely.
that
The last
data
March
was
meeting, when
that data
Mr.
was
Trapani
available.
gave us those numbers, it was like, you just,
couldn't we
you might as well blow everybody out of their chairs.
have Googled that to
Right.
find out?
And, you know, for some of this,
I'm sorry.
That's free. And somebody
this is a relatively new information for the ask. It's maybe a couple weeks old. I don't know that we're 100% up to speed. It might be another chance to say, hey, tell us more and figure it out. But I'm not sitting here advocating because I don't know that I knew about it before I read the packet. I'd heard it talked about. David heard about it maybe at the community forum 10 days ago or whenever it was. 2
Meaning
weeks
I
ago.
couldn't get to.
But I mean, so I don't think it's unreasonable to say we'd like to get some more information and figure out if it's really worth it. And if you're trying to solve a political issue with more facts, then it's not going to be. But if it can help us internally, perhaps I could come back and say, you know, it really would help us because this would focus, when you read through their thing, how traffic goes in and out of Snowmass versus what we have now. So there could be something, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's totally worth the dollars yet.
Okay, oh joy.
Oh, joy.
David, thank you. I mean,
Is there what else is on
you
here?
are a wealth of information on it, and I always look forward to your input on it. But I of course have my own feelings on it, because I've lived here, we both lived here a long time. We know what we're dealing with here.
Well, you know, so when we look at agenda number 9, increased cost of increased service for Brush Creek, we've got to fold that into the budget update and all these projects. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. We just want to make sure it's going forward. Now the information's known. We think it's reasonable.
Oh, you won't be
We
there.
think it's a good value.
Thursday.
Who won't?
You won't.
I'm here Thursday.
Won't be here where?
Oh, it says March 23rd. You were at that meeting.
I was, people
No, you
just,
know what?
Didn't you see Zena?
They put me down in that meeting. I wasn't
See, I
there.
told you they didn't know who you were.
they've
confused us.
marked me absent for every
No, we both wear
EOTC meeting,
glasses.
so I don't know why I even bother going.
It's okay, Bob.
I haven't missed one. And anyway, they marked, and I sent that out.
Yeah, I kind of saw that.
I said, why bother going? They marked me absent for everyone anyway. You know? No, I'm gonna be here, yes. And Patty Clapper sent me an email too.
So it's the meeting Thursday's here in this room.
And I guess in order to get more Aspen people here, we need to do that wine and cheese thing again, I think, like we did to,
That was fun. But nothing happened.
no, nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you so much.
you're
Thank you,
welcome.
David.
I wish us all luck on Thursday.
Would you be so kind, we've all taken notes, would you be so kind to send out 5 or 6 bullets of what you've just talked about relative to the revenue, expenses, what's available, what's not, what are you guys need to ask what the projects are, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, we
A
can,
quick summary, I mean, just bullets.
yeah.
So we all,
Can we incorporate that with Rhonda's going to put this in like our legislate packet?
whatever she's gonna do for
That way we
Thursday.
could outline and make notes, if that would be very helpful.
Just a,
Okay,
I mean, real brief.
Yeah,
okay.
great, thank you.
Okay,
But that's gonna be out there for everyone to see if,
Yeah, let me email it to you.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
okay, that would be perfect. Okay, now we're gonna go back to our regular agenda. Oh, boy. Housing.
Can-
Boy, David and Travis,
Madam Mayor, can we put broadband next? It'll take us 6 minutes, and then we can spend the remaining time on housing. Otherwise, we'll spend the whole time on housing, I'm guessing, and not get the broadband.
okay, broadband.
We brought Kara from the county here so they just promised me 6
Hey,
minutes.
Kara, come on up. Don't worry, we got you on timer. Welcome, it's so good to see you again, Kara.
See you guys as well. Thank you for having me.
I'll let you guys share that one.
That's fine.
So yeah, Picken County last year asked us to opt out of Senate Bill 152,
Yeah.
which you may know is the bill that restricts local governments from participating in cable and telecommunications infrastructure, which also includes broadband internet service. And we just kind of wanted to introduce this topic to you tonight to see if we could kind of get the ball rolling on opting out of that legislation this coming election. Kara has been our main point of contact with the county on this project, and she is here to answer any tough questions you might have. I'll take the easy ones.
I mean, the real simple version, and she can answer the hard ones again, is a lot of municipalities and counties in the state have done this. There's no reason we don't. All it does is increase our ability for local control over the issue, should an opportunity come up. There's not necessarily one identified for the village right now, but if the county starts working through other options to serve other parts of the county's Old Snowmass, wherever, we want to be able to help them out in their efforts. And so while it's not, we don't know exactly how to be used, we don't see any drawback to asking voters for permission to free us from this regulation. And I think it's batting 1,000 statewide, isn't it? I don't think anybody's failed in this one.
The one that did fail, Longmont, actually did pass it then by a crazy amount 2 years later. So, yeah.
So it's almost a perfunctory request of the citizens that you assume is automatic. So if it's all right,
Lead the conversation.
Yeah.
if it's okay with you guys, we'd like to go forward with it. We want to make sure you're aware of it. You'd be putting the question on the ballot. We'd be stealing probably ballot language from the county and doing something very similar. I think you guys spent about $12 promoting it last time.
Mm-hmm. And it
And-
passed with about 80%.
Yeah.
So as long as there's no big red flags, we're going to continue down that path.
Does anybody have any
No.
concerns about it or questions
No,
about
I
it?
mean, I know at Northwest Cog, you know, they have the people that have been working on broadband, and, you know, the biggest thing I hear from from people there at those meetings are that there's a lot of areas where there's no service, and it's a real issue for these people for a variety of reasons. I mean, not just to like be able to use broadband, but, you know, lots of things down the road. And if you looked at what they said in there, you know, it makes sense. I mean, there's going to be things that come up that maybe you're not going to be able to do because you don't have the appropriate broadband service. So I think
I don't think there's
everybody's
a
doing
a
it.
downside to it, frankly.
no.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, if they were going to like, you know, put some weird regulation on you because you opted to do it, then it would be
yeah,
different.
if
But
you- right.
I don't
if-
see any issue.
No hard questions?
I don't have any.
Margie, do you have any questions about the opting out of the broadband?
You know, I have this whole thing about government.
About what?
And,
The thing that you're a part of, you mean?
yeah, the whole thing.
Leads?
I think we need to keep our options open as a town. I'm just all about keeping our playing field where we can best use our playing field for the advantage.
Because our players on the playing field.
On our field, the home field.
Yeah. We want to have a little bit more control. Thank you.
You'll see it coming back. I'll
Right.
get it to you.
Thank you guys for picking
Thank
time.
you.
Thank guys
Thank
for
you
helping
for-
us
So
out.
I guess what's the next step is to prepare the language.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of deadlines for clerks, but it's,
Okay.
We'll notice it. We'll get John on it. We'll still all work together. But you guys will eventually have to approve the language to go
Yeah.
on the ballot.
and all the ballot language across the state has been almost verbatim. Everyone's kind of stealing the same stuff, so there's not a lot of work, which is nice. It's just
Also,
silly that we all have to go through it and that they can't pass it at a larger level, but
okay, thank you.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Thanks for
Go
coming.
forward to do good work, and that only took 4 minutes. Next.
The last one is the housing discussion. Obviously, the council, when you guys passed the last two sets of goal setting, talked about the need for more workforce/affordable housing in the community. And we have had a couple of initiatives going forward because of that goal the council set. This last year, the council put a significant amount of dollars in the budget for a project. And one of the things we wanted to do as part of that effort and as part of the comp plan effort was undertake a housing demand study. Travis is going to walk us through that in a couple seconds. We updated a housing demand study from 2008. We'll walk you through that. And then at the end of that, because of the numbers we've got, we were simultaneously working on an idea for a project I wanted to introduce tonight. It's in its infancy, but I wanted to make sure the council was aware of it and walk you through some of the processes we expect to go through to get that project up and going and make sure that, again, no red flags and that everyone's aware of what we're thinking about getting done. So now I'll hand it off to Travis.
Okay, so we will start with the housing demand update that we recently completed. The original was done by RRC in 2007. It was finished in 2008 using data through 2007. Looks like this. I don't think we included that in your packet, so I apologize, but I think everyone's familiar with it, has seen it before. And basically, the main story kind of stays the same. There's still a high demand for additional housing units. However, we have revised that down based on employment data that we have available, current employment data. So our update shows the demand for an additional 383 units. That's down from 474, which was the number in the 2010 comprehensive plan.
So, just first question out of the bat. So as I was going
Please.
through this, Travis, and thank you so very much for spending a lot of time putting this together. So we know Base Village has to deal with their own employee housing, or there's a mitigation factor. Where is that housing going? Is that included in this, or is that minus?
So we included both their estimates for how many
Okay.
employees they will be generating and how many additional affordable housing units they are being required to build.
Okay, and is that a full build out of Base Village?
Yes.
Okay,
And that's part of the 243?
That is not part of our inventory, no. That is part of the total. I think there's 798 total units.
Well,
The 243 you're talking about our rental stock?
no. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my number. I'll get to that later.
Okay.
Your number of how many more units you need to build
Yes.
is whatever it was.
It's net what the sticks and bricks that Base Village did.
It's net of what is coming out of Base Village for the mitigation.
Yes.
Oh.
Future and past. I mean, Sinclair, John knows the history way better than I do, but there was some mitigation already
Right.
built, and those numbers are all incorporated into this.
A lot of it. There's not much left. It's like the retail, they front-loaded the employee housing with the commercial.
oh, okay. Ergo St. Clair Metals.
Sinclair Meadows, Club Commons 2,
Yeah,
units that are already built in the Base Village. I think the number's like 14 left.
14
To be
left.
built for all Base
Okay.
Village.
okay,
So that was front-loaded, to make sure we got it.
okay.
So our total employment and Base Village are kind of the two main factors that have been updated since 2007. In addition to that, it was the next section of the memo, current employee housing demand. We also did some crunching there to show you how many current qualified employees are on our rental wait list, which is 143 as of May 17th. And we also have a little graph there showing how many qualified applicants are bidding on deed restricted units since 2010. That's gone up from 2.4 to 14.7.
2.4 to 14.7,
Correct.
And that 143 number is, you'll hear different numbers on our wait list.
right.
And what Travis and the housing department, Joe and Terry all work together on is to get actual people that are on the list. One person might be willing to go in a studio or a 1-bedroom or a 2 or a 3. This was going through, calling the list to actual people on the list.
Okay.
Correct. And then I just want to point out the qualified applicants for deed restricted units. Those are folks that have gone through, met the minimum requirements to initially qualify and to have the financial qualifications
And
to
that
actually
does
bid in
not,
the first
none of
place.
this is Pickett County employees, that's just our Snowmass Village.
Apply.
Okay, so they may be
We
in,
win, but they can apply.
okay, but those are included in here?
Those are included.
They are,
They
okay,
are qualified applicants.
okay, got it.
This, just so you can dig down a little deeper on this chart, you don't know the sizes of the units by the qualified applicants per
Oh, okay.
lottery. So we found that the smaller units usually have more because they are more affordable. So it could be that there's a factor in there. I can't tell you what it
Yeah,
is.
we talked about
We can't tell you. I know, I'm just giving them the background, so don't pound on the table and say there's 15 applicants and there only used to be 2, because it could be we had a rash of studios in 17, or
Sure.
I think it's safe to say that the demand is climbing. And if you stay with, this demonstrates that, but it's not like a hard and fast number because it's apples and oranges in the lotteries.
And that brings up a good point that we kind of stopped at units. We haven't kind of dove down another layer where we talk about bedrooms, beds, et cetera. We're pretty high level.
And then, so we presented this information, just so you all know, to the Planning Commission last Wednesday, I believe. That was the last meeting. Made sure they're aware of it, and then this data will be rolled into the comp plan. we haven't seen the first draft yet, but, this is the kind of stuff that when we're doing all the Planapalooza and the community input, one of the top issues we continued to hear about was need for housing, but we didn't have updated numbers to apply to that qualitative input. And so this would help us at least define some of that qualitative input we received the process.
In terms of looking at that list with Terry and,
Joe?
yeah, Joe, that's something else on my mind right now. Are we seeing a difference in the applicants who are applying? Is it young families, or is it single people that are just moving here for the season, or what? Any observations at a 30,000-foot level?
I don't know.
And we definitely don't do seasonal. It's definitely
Okay.
year-round leases. That's, one of the bigger differences between our program and what SKICO does at Club Commons is we require a 12-month lease. And SKICO, of course, tries to hit their seasonal employment and offset it with other demands when they don't have their employees.
But my understanding is some people choose to leave for a few months and somebody else may move into never mind. Okay, you're not supposed to happen.
John will know the guidelines better than me, but
That's not supposed to happen, but if it's occupied and someone gives up a lease, Joe tries to fill that. And then they usually only get the balance of the year because they redo all the leases.
Okay.
And the rental properties, that way everyone gets requalified.
Okay.
And that's in January, correct, I think?
Yeah. They started earlier than that, but that's kind of
Yeah.
their goal, to finish January 1. They usually start sending out the new leases right around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Madeline put an article in the paper today, which I take it was a review of the planning commission meeting. Is that fair to say?
I would say subjective review.
Yeah, subjective review.
She was in the audience at the meeting.
Right,
so
subjective
I
review.
haven't seen the article. Should I go
That's
read
good.
it?
But-
I wouldn't waste my time.
Well,
she's
I
probably
mean, but
listening.
one of the things though that I did take away was, or at least created a question in my mind, was a part of the article that talks about people who, at the time they lease, work in Snowmass. And then at some subsequent time, they leave their work in Snowmass and they work in Pickens County, or they work in Aspen. And that in some respects, they still qualify. Okay? If we have 140 people waiting for rental properties, why do we allow someone to maintain a qualification if they no longer work in Snowmass? If our goal is to get Snowmass employees, the Snowmass workforce, housed in our affordable housing, why would we allow that?
Because if they work for Pickens County, someplace in Pickens County, they still are qualified. But you're
But
saying,
I'm under, maybe I misunderstood, but
No, you
what
didn't.
I thought I understood was in order to get a lease,
you
you
have,
had to work in Snowmass.
not necessarily
Not necessarily. There's a priority
priority.
at that time. And if you're a renewing
Yeah,
lessee,
yeah.
you don't get booed. You don't go
Still
back into the
qualify.
priority pool.
So,
Okay, so that's
So
for,
you don't
that's for
lose your
units that are
qualification.
vacated.
okay. So I guess my,
Okay, I understand. And in deed restricted sales, if someone changes their job, we don't force a sale at this point.
okay.
And just to kind of get in the weeds for 1 second on that issue, in this analysis that we updated, I think there's I was just trying to find it, but I think it's a 28% factor that we put in there for retirement and folks that don't work in the village.
Yeah, I
So
saw
there-
that.
So there is a factor there to kind of offset it.
I did see that. So, my thought is this, let's redetermine what our goal is for our workforce housing. If it's to house the Snowmass workforce, then perhaps we should consider rewriting some of the regulations so that we in fact give priority and maintain priority to the Snowmass Village workforce.
And those are two very different concepts, give and maintain the priority.
Yes.
Okay, understand that. And I understand what you're saying, and we, the town, has been round and round on this issue. And what you have to realize is that APSHA does not give a priority for any of their stuff. So, there are a lot of people that work in Snowmass that are housed through the city and county housing authority. And I think that came around about a long time ago, because it's been that way as long as I've been here, that you didn't lose your housing if your job went through the county, if you switched jobs, so long as you're still in the county.
Okay.
And you wouldn't want to spark a reciprocal action on their part.
True.
So
Or
I think
to be considered.
if you, I don't know this for a fact, but I think if you took the factor that Clint was talking about and compared it to the county's factor, that might be the informative statistic that you want to get to where to really make that decision about maintaining your priority. Because
Okay.
if it's anywhere near to equal, and, you know,
Yeah, I understand, but that's,
The other kind of detail to throw in this too is if an employee, let's say, is in a studio and works in the village someplace and then switches jobs to somewhere else, and all of a sudden wants to upgrade to a one-bedroom for whatever reason,
Right.
that priority is reset with their new job.
Right.
So they're in, they don't get kicked out, but they lose that ability to get the priority because of what their job at the time.
to move up into a
at the
bigger
time they're
place.
applying, right?
right.
We call it
Okay.
in-complex, but yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it might be worthwhile to compare the,
You might compare, yeah.
It might
Compare,
be
that's all.
informative.
Yeah.
It might be informative, but the council has, in the past, tried to refrain from having your housing be controlled by your job.
Right.
Okay? Now, had this sector of housing been addressed by private organizations, the businesses, as many think it should, you generate employees, you need to house them, not the government, but that's philosophical, that
yeah.
is way down the river at this point. I'll leave it there.
Where do we stand in the town now with credits, housing mitigation credits? Are there still a lot, SKICO had a bunch.
Eco has a ton.
SKICO had a ton,
They still do.
they still have a ton.
Yeah.
And were they using them for the base village?
Well, the base village, understand, when it was conceived, the base village could have been constructed without a single employee housing unit by the use of their credits.
They used the credits, yeah.
And the council of the day said, yeah, that's not gonna happen. But they're also hamstrung by saying, you have to mitigate 100% with sticks and bricks, because that's a taking of this right that they have to credits. So it came down about 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 sticks and bricks and 1/3, which I think the total, and I haven't looked at that chart for a long time, was close to 100,000 square feet of housing. And so like about 66,000, 68,000, something in there was sticks and bricks, and the rest was credits. Ski Company has used a few more, like 7,000 square feet. I think that was to do the Elk Camp restaurant, actually, and they did some more that they actually haven't done, use some credits for some of the Snowmass Club expansion. Yeah, but it was a small
It
one.
was a
So
smidge.
they still have a lot left.
They have a lot, but understand that it's only in the council's discretion whether they're gonna let them use, credits or not. And credits are, they're to, the credits are to be used to develop land that they were attached to. So like, the base village credits were part of the, they were inherited by, not inherited, they purchased them, but they were garnered by Snowmass Land Company, giving away land for housing projects. Okay, so they're connected that way.
Yeah.
But, that's all subject to, review and approval by the council in the land use, the PUD process, so. But they're out there.
Okay. One thing that, I mean, I picked up from this analysis that you've presented is that you're appearing to me, I think you are looking at full-time and seasonal employment together. Now, my understanding of the comp plan as it exists is that the mitigation is to provide for 60% of only full-time employment,
Year-round, yeah.
right? Year-round.
Round.
So,
That qualifies for the number of hours that are required.
okay, so your analysis really would create the need for a policy change if we are now going to look for housing our seasonal workforce
No, I
to-
think we adjusted for that. and
to
I'll let-
some level. But I don't see where you readjusted for it. If you look at, I'm looking at this
Yeah, I know.
page that says Snowmass Village Jobs.
Right.
So where did you readjust for it?
We didn't, and the reason being is because I think the goal from the 2010 comp plan is actually 70% of full-time year-round employees and 60% of all employees. So what we did is average our total employees, seasonal, winter, summer, and average them out through the year. So we have an average employment count for the entire year, and then we divided that by 1.35, which is how many jobs one employee has in Snowmass Village. The reason being is because you could have, multiple jobs, but you could also have a seasonal summer job, you could have a seasonal winter job, and just kind of go back and forth, which I know plenty of people do.
I don't ever remember that 70%, because what I do remember is when the initial RRC was done, it wasn't even 60%. It came in at 50 some odd, and then we did a skosh for future.
The comp plan now, I mean, we read it in the last,
Yeah.
I mean, it says 70 and 60 depending on
You know
how-
who made that decision?
Well, and again, that's,
That was a council.
I don't know.
Coach, that was another coach.
but I mean, neither here nor there, but that, again, those are the assumptions. That's
Okay,
what this
that's-
analysis you're looking at
It's
says
based on the
draft.
assumptions that you had, okay.
I mean, so we tried to keep it this consistency, so there's an apples to apples.
So we all
comparison.
know we need more.
That's kind of, there you go.
That's the main takeaway,
That's the
for
main
sure.
takeaway.
The question in my mind is, do we need more deed restricted or do we need more rental? And if we have a number, I don't care what number it is, what's the percentage that should be deed restricted and what's the percentage that should be rental?
We don't know right now.
Well, how do we find that out? I mean, I think, personally, I think we should find that out before we start constructing.
What about the people that are on the list? Are those just rentals?
Yes.
It's the rental list, and then because different size units comes up, it's hard to say, we've got X number waiting.
But we don't have a list of people that like to put themselves in the lottery for, like, units that they can purchase?
We don't take a wait list, no.
Well, because I was just saying you
Gotta
could send
recall.
out a survey to them or ask them questions, or is there any way to like survey people that would be interested in employee housing?
We do have the results from the 2015 community survey, which did ask if you would be interested in employee housing, and if so, would you rent or would you like to own?
Oh, that's helpful. That's very helpful. Let me
And we're
ask
about
this.
to do that survey again this summer, so.
Let me ask you this. Should we have RRC to rework, to go back, and we did a huge questionnaire.
Well, and I'm shaking my head, because
No.
that same question came up on Wednesday, and it's almost like the entrance to Aspen question. We know there's a problem. Whether it's 400 or 300 or 500, we could argue some of the assumptions, but, I mean, if you cut this 280 or 383 number in half, there's still 180. I mean, so I don't know we're to that order
Okay,
of magnitude
okay.
where we need to restudy it yet. I mean, at some point, I'd love to get there.
But that's as to demand and classification,
Vision.
which is Bob,
Correct.
single-family deed restricted, multifamily deed restricted versus rental. We might need information on that, but that goes to the question of how do you want to pay for it? Because as Clint will tell you, and those of us that live in deed restricted will tell you, when you buy it, we pay for it, and it's not a town asset anymore. When you rent it, you have to pay it off over time like Mountain View, but at a certain point, then it becomes a revenue producer. And how do, that's one of the things we discussed, is how much deed restricted Aspen has. Well, they don't have municipal funds tied up in those and you'll see that we've had no problem selling any bonds to do housing because they're paid by rental. And with to quote Clint's number, 99.8% occupancy rate, that's very attractive to investors on a tax-free municipal bond.
Yeah.
They're not worried about default, and it's not based on a sales tax that can go like this. It's a revenue back.
John, you know as well as I do, when crossings came about, was there an interest? There were so many people in the lottery that they held it up at Silver Tree, and literally it was a true lottery. It was a community party, and there was a big basket, and they pulled your name out, and so on. And there was obviously a big interest in deed restricted, and people wanted to buy into the community. More so, I mean, we have some between crossings and rodeo down there, and I think what you're going to suggest coming up in front of us now, there's a big interest in buying into this community, not necessarily just renting. I mean, it's affordable housing and.
Tom, we don't know, whatever the number of units is, whatever that number is, we don't know what percentage ought to be rental, what percentage ought to be deed restricted. We have, in town, we have somewhat of a limited amount of space with which to build. So we really should put together some idea of what it's ultimately going to look like. What will it ultimately look like? Where would we ultimately be able to build it? And then prioritize what we got to build.
Well, here's another question, and I'm tired of harping on the issue because Picken County's done nothing on it. And that is aging in place.
Yeah, that's another
And
issue.
You've got more and more and more people in our town who want to stay here,
Well,
that are in the retirement age, and if we don't put that into consideration.
Well, that is in there. That is in
The demand.
Travis's numbers.
Yeah, but did you look at what those you gotta have flat, wheelchair accessible units.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
You mean the type
You're
of
talking
unit.
design, you're talking demand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
Well, speaking of the demand, I mean, now, and to answer your question, Bob, is the people who are living in rodeo and crossings and deed restricted housing, I really believe that 80% of them, that's just thrown out there, don't really want rental units next to theirs because they take pride in their deed restricted homes.
they do.
So I think if we're talking about, we need to separate and segregate the rentals and the deed restriction. I don't think we could have
If Joe,
a fourplex down there in Rodeo when you're right in the middle where we have all these individual homeowners who bought into the
Well,
beautiful
I'm not even suggesting that we do that.
Okay.
Okay, that's not really what I'm trying to suggest. I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, we're talking about limited space available,
but
so I don't.
if Joe Coffey were here, he would agree with you 100%. I mean, he is a big advocate for certain kinds of demarcation, just like that, for learning from lessons of the past and whatnot, but.
I'm just referring to our limited space, thinking that we want to mix it up.
But we have town managers that once we start down that path, take a U-turn.
Give me in there.
Well, country club townhomes.
Well, that's
I
right,
mean,
that's a
no,
good
and-
example.
Prime example.
But those are the things
Well, we're
we've
home
learned
three of
and
them
want
right
to
now.
learn from.
And I understand from a management point that you need to have housing for director level people or you're not gonna get them. But I would start with that first and get out of mixed use, mixed governance of units. Because we've already been hit for $1 million and it's a circular thing that's gonna happen again.
Yeah, it's coming back.
And,
Travis,
so,
can,
But you're
you,
agreeing-
you
you're-
open that
no,
door,
but
so
you're
I had to
agreeing with-
jump on
You're
it.
agreeing with Tom. We're all saying the same thing.
can Joe provide information on, of these 142 people who are on the rental list, you know, how many there are for each type of unit? You know, does that help us to understand what the workforce is looking for if we go to try to build something?
I mean, just listening to Joe, 2 bedrooms is the most popular, for sure. I mean, that's, 3s are harder, studios are actually more than a 1s. Because of price.
I think you also need to do an analysis of your workforce, because the units that were crossings were a direct response to a kind of up and out mentality that, you know, professionals and mid-level managers weren't gonna have a family and live in a small rental unit. And that was the thinking behind the crossings, and it was a need that was expanded with Rodeo Place. And it's even been expanded because Fairway 3,
Right.
with the 3 bedrooms in there, they couldn't sell the 3 bedrooms. Now that market has changed immensely, and the 3 bedrooms are starting to be built again. Sinclair Meadows has some, as well as Club Commons. And some of the Club Commons are deed restricted. So my personal opinion is you can build anything and you'll fill it at this point. And you need to decide what is the most efficient to address the workforce issue.
Well, to take the pressure off the workforce issue? Well, in order to do that, I come back to what you just said, you need to understand what your workforce is looking for.
Well, it goes back to, is your workforce changing? It's what I'm hearing. If they want a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, we couldn't sell them before. It's because your workforce is changing.
Well, yeah.
Demographic of your workforce is changing.
Well, I can tell you, the crossings homes that go on the market don't have 14.7 bidders on them. And we've had ones up there that have had to go to secondary lotteries because there's 6 people in it, and for one reason or another, they can't get a deal, or they can't qualify, because those houses are over 20 years old now, and with the appreciation, even with the caps, they've gone up substantially.
Do we have to change our caps? Our asset cap?
No, well, you know, it's 3%.
Yeah.
Or the lower of the CPI, and it's been the CPI, we haven't been near 3% for quite some time.
It's the asset qualification, though.
Oh,
That's what I'm asking.
well, I don't think you can lower that asset
No, okay.
qualification,
I
because
was gonna raise it.
you have to, well, you can raise it, but then you get, they're based on what a mortgage costs. It's not really, I mean, that's what the caps are, the net worth and the income caps are based on. So, okay, if you're making $100,000 a year, you can afford this much in a mortgage, so that means
Okay.
that's how those are backed into. We're not trying to reduce the or increase the prospective owners, because if you lower it, then they get upside down in a house like that. Then you have the issue of they buy more house than they can, they put renters in it, and they change the character of the neighborhood, which is a problem as well. So,
But I think there's 2 discussions. There's the regulatory discussion, which, I mean, looking at the regulations, whether it be asset caps, all those kinds of things, is probably a worthwhile endeavor at some point in the near future. But then it's also just the endeavor of hitting that demand. And kind of to your point, Councilor Circus, I mean, I hear you, and I agree with you, I think in the core, that we need to understand at some point rental versus deed restricted. But we're so far behind on both, I don't think you can go wrong to get a ball
Either way.
rolling
That's
one way
my
or the
point.
other.
that's a discussion for another day when
Right.
I don't wanna say saturated, but you've gotten closer to saturated in both concepts.
Right.
That's a decision of how you finish it out.
How,
I'm
So-
almost looking at the clock, and I know, big picture, 30,000 feet up, we know we need more, we know we need probably a combination of what have you. You're looking at a location, and I wonder if we should focus on that, then come back to the other questions on detail.
Before you do that,
Okay.
before you get down into this level, you need to be thinking about, and we don't have to discuss it tonight, what about that mitigation number in the future? Because that's where we are as the comp plan at this point. And, we had that discussion with the planning commission as well. And, we explained to them how history started at 60, went to 45, went to 100, back to 60, and then even though the last comp plan targeted 70, the code didn't get changed. So, and remember also, and this is, when it went to 100% mitigation, the investment and development community said, too expensive to build here. And nothing happened. So that was a short-lived period of 100%.
That was someone
But
trying
those-
to win election.
Just, I'm not saying answer that question tonight, but that's one of the things that's gonna be coming at you sooner than later.
John, I wanted to ask a question on funding. On the rental properties, you float housing bonds.
Yep.
What do you do on a deed restricted property? Because you're only getting a portion of the cost.
Well,
Recover.
typically, well, like for crossings and, rodeo place, the town bought the whole rodeo. The other ones have been property that has been donated, and then we've assigned a relatively small land value to the property, so that's that gap on what it really would be as a subsidy, and then,
Okay.
we've built, I don't wanna say standardized, but common designed homes, so there's like 6 of one model, 7 of another model in there, so, and that's how we've made it affordable in other places. There's ways you can do it, but you take out a loan,
One of the analyses
and
that
it's
we-
paid off, you pay it off and you sell it, so the town takes out a short-term loan, or the developer.
and if this were to move forward, one of the analyses that we need to undertake still, which we haven't done, is the existing values of the homes, and we want to make sure that the new homes are similar and fairly priced compared to the existing homes, so that we don't offset somebody else's assets or
Yeah,
equity.
Right.
Well, then
We
have
don't
to-
flood a market with something
No,
that's.
that's true.
So there'd be a
But-
lot of math in setting that
But
price.
by showing a fairly low price for the land, because the town owns it, that gets you only so far in terms of
Construction
the
cost.
construction cost versus the selling price.
Well, and so you know that let's see, Fairway 3, stick-built, Crossing stick-built, and I think everything since then has been modular.
Right.
And there's a savings there,
Yeah,
of building them
yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah.
factory and trucking them in. So
Big time.
that's another way that we try and get to affordable housing, but it's still difficult.
And there still could be subsidy, to answer your question. If we got
Yeah.
to it and we said, it's the stick-built, or the actual construction cost is more than what would be considered affordable, there still could be subsidy applied to that. And that's, those budgeted dollars, we'd look to use those dollars to
And there's-
potentially offset that.
There's 2 clear sources for that. One's your floor area excise tax, and the other one is rental income. Right now, you are prioritizing that rental income to renovations to those older properties. And, but those are 2 sources of funds to generate subsidies. So,
Yeah, just, the idea of using rental income from a rental property to subsidize a deed restricted property is
I don't think you should look
kind
at
of
it,
like paying
not
Peter.
a deed restricted, a new rental property.
Oh,
A deed,
no, no, no,
a
no.
deed restricted, you're gonna try and do construction that,
That offsets the selling price. Okay.
Can we move into this part of it, please?
Yeah.
But just to, on that note, before you leave it, the rental income we have is not restricted. There are no legal
Yeah,
restrictions.
no, I
to it.
understand that.
Philosophy all day long. but-
Philosophy, yeah.
when you have floor area excise tax fund too, that is only for housing.
Okay.
So it is restricted, that's why I brought them both up.
And you could all add to your houses and do a donation to the town. I know that would quite well.
So it's just,
Come on, circus that on.
No, leave them alone.
Well, and understand it is a tax of diminishing returns, because you can only do it once per property.
But we need to make sure he's well maxed and over.
We need to-
Alyssa,
we
in
gotta
her
wait
new
for-
home, she
We
needs
gotta
more
wait for
space.
the assessor to jack up the values, that's when he needs to remodel.
Okay, good. All humor aside and all
The
amusing.
assessor doesn't need any help.
No, that's for sure.
Okay.
So this project was conceived for a couple different ways, but one of the ideas was honestly ease. Town owns majority of this property, and it would be, we're confident that the demand for ownership is there, and so the idea was to continue, at least in concept, with going forward and finishing out this subdivision. It is just conceptual. This is Charles Cuniff Architects helped us do some initial design just to determine feasibility, what could fit, what may be appropriate. But there's 24 units designed here. The town owns all the property except for right here. These 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, are not on town property. So this would take a conversation with that property owner to see if that's even a
Is
feasibility.
that Horse Ranch?
Yes.
Might take another condemnation action, eminent domain.
And what our thought was, we wanted to show this thinking so that neighbor could know what would build out, potentially look like. We didn't want to say, well, this and then this, this section, then this section, then this section. So we said, what would build out potentially look like? It was very important when the architects started putting some things together, that it fit the existing architecture, that the buildings looked like they belonged. There's always opportunity for more density back this way, but again, we were trying to make sure that some of these houses were all lower in height so that they wouldn't be affecting some of the existing houses. A lot of those considerations were put into this draft analysis for us to start thinking about as a project to move forward. If it does get some legs and there is some support behind it, we'd have a lot of steps to still go. We'd need to talk to neighborhoods, we need to talk to property owners, we need to do the financial analysis, to your point, Bob, about, what kind of subsidy would it be, what could these potentially sell for? A lot of that would need to go on before we made any dirt would have to move. There'd be a lot of analysis still. And feedback. We also want to make sure that this is understood to be a benefit and make sure it's in the right spot and meet the need.
One of the plans that we saw for, I thought it was poster, was where the wetlands are, is putting kind of a beach type environment.
That's further down here. That's
Okay.
right in here.
Are any of those in wetlands?
Our initial analysis is no.
Okay.
It's all mapping exercises. We haven't gone out and dug holes. We don't know groundwater. It's all a mapping exercise at this point. So
So this-
these are designed to be on fill, and this
Okay.
is out of the wetlands. If you go down there, there's a bunch of fill there today.
Okay.
And so we think these are all feasible. There's still analysis to go, though. Just roughly, these are all single family, then duplexes.
Way back when, we did the rodeo place before it was being conceptualized. There was community concern about what people see when they drive into Snowmass. Is the first impression you want to see employee housing? So I'm just saying,
Sure.
that
And-
was an issue
In
that
that
we
second
really
picture
had
in
to
the
work on.
pocket, I didn't bring one to throw up here, but I believe in that second picture, is we understood that concern, and we tried to do a little artist rendition. It's a cut and paste
Right.
of what it could look like. And in frankness, there could be considerably more density put on this property, and we took that consideration that they're making into heart, knowing that would be a discussion, and we wanted to do what we thought was the best fit and address that issue of appearance coming into the village right there.
And just since we're deep into the history, Rodeo Place came in, it was the council decisions on color and architecture that raised the biggest stink with that development. And after 4 houses were constructed, the direction was to put this into the Snowmass homeowners so that there would be design review. And I don't believe you were on that council.
No, I was not on that council.
Letting you off the hook.
Yeah.
I wanna go check the dates.
I was
but
probably planning
You're
commission. at
planning,
that
but
time.
council made the decision on those, the color scheme down there, and unfortunately, you can't force people to change it once they buy it. But repainting, they will have to comply with that, homeowner's color palette. So that was one of the big things that was made that concern jump up out of that subdivision.
I mean, I hear what you're saying about see employee housing, but most people I know that have never been here have no idea that's employee housing.
Well, and you, I can tell you that when the Crossings was originally built, I don't wanna say it stuck out because the colors, it was immediately in the homeowners. And now that the trees have gone up and, you know, it's hard to know that that is, for lack of a better term, really tract housing in there, that it's
Right.
common designs, common exteriors and window, stuff, so not treatments, but size windows and style windows. You really have to pull in and go in and look
Ew.
closely to know it
Crossings.
now.
Rodeo looks
And
more
I-
like
the way
employee
the
housing.
discussion was described to me, Alyssa, was not so much employee housing, but just housing. You know,
Right.
Yes.
it's kind of an openness versus, you know,
Well, I mean, it looks better than the rodeo lot.
and agree.
Well, then, you know,
But there's a
back
lot-
then, it was, the comparison was Steamboat Springs, when you drive into Steamboat Springs. Do we want to look like that?
Well, and I think it was also, you know, I mean, Horse Ranch is a good example.
Right.
That used to be the most beautiful meadow right when you came into town. I mean,
Right.
in the springtime, it was yellow and bright and empty, and there was quite a battle on whether that should be developed. And now it's there, but as the foliage fills it in, as
You
the,
just don't notice it as much.
it-
I mean, I feel like when you drive on Brush Creek and you get there, I mean, most people are in such awe, like what they're looking at in front of them. They're not like looking at the houses. They're looking at the
Well,
mountain.
I think the
Yeah, I
rodeo,
think you're right.
rodeo and crossings was a very well thought-through project. The colors, yeah,
yeah,
but on the other hand,
I think it's great.
I think it's well
They
done.
both work
Well,
very well.
you should also know that the town has been approached by the Horse Ranch homeowners for more landscaping on the corner, so that they don't have to look at Rodeo Place when they go by.
That doesn't include me.
Are you're part of Horse Ranch?
Yeah, but I would never say that.
But those are concessions when we get down. I mean,
Yeah.
we can work through those types of issues. I mean, really what I want to make sure is that you were aware that you made this a policy goal when you adopted the goal statement.
Yeah.
You put some dollars in the budget. Between the demand analysis, we're comfortable with the demand's there, and we were working simultaneously to kind of get this initial feasibility study underway. And we plan on continuing forward with making sure to figure out how best to get this done from here.
So let me walk through it. So I'm driving in on Horse Ranch, and I'm turning on whatever street that is.
Go straight onto Stallion.
Okay.
And to go into Rodeo Place.
Okay,
Horse Ranch does a hard left.
that's right, it's a hard left.
Yeah, that's Horse Ranch.
So we're looking at duplexes. Are those,
Yes.
There's already some there.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
there's three.
well, there's three. There's Hy-Vee live down there.
Right there.
Yeah, and that's a pretty nice. The other ones, what are we talking about? They're different
So duplexes, single family.
and they're 2 bedrooms?
There's a
3 bedrooms.
there's a mix of 2 and 3 bedrooms.
Okay, got it.
There's a mix of 2-story and 1.5-story. These are conceptually designed for walkout basements and 1-story. These are 1.5-story and these are 2-story.
The other thing, down here we have the duplexes, we're talking pretty steep grade.
Yep, and that's what, yeah, and we understand that. There's some of the designs that they've, again, very conceptually, was to actually have them built differently so that we wouldn't have to dig so much and save some money in
Okay.
constructability.
Which we did do on those ones, the ones
The
that
one
are
that Hy-Vee's
existing.
in?
Yeah, they are right at the toe of the
Yeah,
slope.
they are.
I mean, we actually talked about condemning the whole where the four on the left are, you can see the property line that goes right there by the sea.
Yep.
Okay, to the left of that is Horse Ranch homeowners, and to get the road into Rodeo Place, we had to condemn it. And it's not extremely valuable land because it's zoned open space and the uses are low. But it was a very complicated valuation, but, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that bad. It was like $115,000 to gain the road access.
What's
So-
the, can they park on the street in that section where those duplexes are?
So when we get into the design, one of the things we want to talk about is road width here, and do we do some kind of bulb outs and have parking so that it could slow traffic going in and out? We hear those complaints about speeding traffic.
Right.
Gets into snow removal, we haven't got that far yet.
Well,
But
I'm
those are-
just saying, like, I feel like if there was like road parking that close to where you turn to Horse Ranch, I don't think that would look so great. Cause, I mean, now the duplexes are back far enough that you can't really, it's not really in your face, but that's pretty close to the, I don't know.
I mean, they're all designed with garages, but those are the design
Yeah,
issues.
but I'm talking about visitors.
Right. And we don't have that level of detail, but the idea, honestly, when we heard through a number of different input sources, but speeding here, and
Right.
the easiest way to slow down speeding is you narrow the street, and the easiest way to narrow the street is allow parking. But to your point, it affects appearance and
Right.
snow removal, so there'd be a lot of discussion to go still. So I don't know is my short answer.
And you know,
What have we done for, these great design, great ideas for deed restricted, and I'd like to see the same thing happen for us going forward with another rental building or wherever, whatever direction, so we can accommodate both sides of the coin here. So,
We haven't done anything with rentals. Honestly, this is our first project. We thought it'd be to get the ball rolling, build some momentum, show some success. We've still got a long way to go with this thing.
of course you do.
But then the next one, if you guys said, hey, we've done these 24 units, let's focus on the other side, I mean, that'd be great direction
I
for,
think-
knock on wood, the next project that we can get going.
Well, that's, I mean, you're spending some time and some money on this.
but understand, they're only studying land that we own at this
I
point.
understand it.
And before, just in my mind, it's easier that way. And then the next step is, okay, now we've got the financing done on this one. We need to switch over to find the place and the financing for a rental
For a rental
project, yeah.
project.
Yep.
This is just, it's 1A only because there's land available right now and with a lot of the infrastructure already there.
Yep, right.
Almost all of it.
I think that's what we envisioned when we purchased Seven Star, was that would become employee
For this
housing,
corner back here.
way back when.
We waited a long time.
Yep. Yep,
And
you
it
had to
was
wait
a
them out.
It was a 6,400 square foot house there with a corral and a barn, and couldn't do anything else with Lot B there, and, that's in the equation too, so. Where the checkpoint Charlie has morphed to,
Back this way, John's talking over here.
down there in that
Like
lower
that.
right-hand corner. I have my own vision for that, but
So is
I'll save it.
Is the rest of Lot B, is the rest of Lot B developable land, or is that where all the wetlands are?
There's a lot of wetlands. The creek really meanders down there to the bridge where it goes into the county. And we had trouble when Seven Star wanted to be annexed into the town, even getting a viable site on the upper side. And what you're not seeing here is that there's this tail that wraps around the mountain. That parcel's 67 acres. So but it's all subject to deed restriction in the county. So there's the Seven Star that's usable is a triangle shape, and the town, as part of the annexation, got the front lot where checkpoint, the parking area is, and then the owner got the other side, and it really came down to one large, that's what he wanted, was
Right,
one
one
large
large-
home site.
Yeah.
And so,
I was gonna show you, we've got all that mapping. This is not the map to show wetlands or not, but.
right.
Okay.
Okay, any other points for
So
discussion?
we're gonna keep moving forward and we'll keep you updated as we.
I had a question, just when you're going back to talking about demand and all those things, I mean, I had a discussion with, Susan and Dwayne from the school district, and I don't know if they ended up talking to you.
John Moy, I went to superintendent's office. I wasn't that bad of a kid, but that was my principal joke. But yeah, no, and so when I informed them of, you know, how things work, I mean, they were under the impression that that nobody was eligible. And I said, no, they talked to them about prioritization, how prioritization works, and yeah, it is more difficult if you don't work in the village, but
Well, I still think that we should consider people that are providing essential services like schools, you know, hospital workers, whatever. I mean, to me, they serve Snowmass Village. I mean, they're not just some person that lives in Pickens County and works.
That's already in there.
And so here's the pitch that I made, and I don't know if it's stuck with anybody yet, is that the 240 units that we've got now have been under the same rules for a long time.
Right.
If we were gonna do something different going forward,
New
let's build
ones.
more housing. And so my pitch to John when I met with him was, if we wanna do something different, let's do a project together. Let's do a rental project together, and if we wanna give, you know, 50-50 on the prioritization, great, but rather than trying to continue to divide a pie that's too small differently, that would be very difficult, let's build another pie or another project.
Well, then you've
and
got to
see
put
what-
the hospital employees in there, and you've got to put,
I think- But I think my
Yeah,
idea
all
would be,
those.
then if the hospital wants to partner on a project, great.
Yeah.
If Anderson Ranch wants to partner,
Yep,
that would.
they're all-
But
they all
anybody
wanna
wants
be
to
in
partner
line.
on a project, let's partner on new stuff and then maybe have some rules for that new
Yeah,
project, rather than
I
trying
like
to.
that idea because
Yeah,
it helps
I agree.
us be able to build more, because we've got other financing
Agree.
sources.
And that's what I talked with them when I met with them. I just think that it's really important to pursue those things because it is an opportunity for us to create more housing without making it all on us.
well, I wish Pickens County would step up to the plate and we could get out senior housing. I understand where we are, and I think this is a great project, and I thank you for putting that mitigation in. But we're not gonna ease, there's only so much land.
Yeah, we're not gonna ease the pressure.
We're not gonna ease the pressure.
Over
No.
time, we're not gonna ease the pressure.
20 years from now, we'll be sitting here having the same
More
conversation.
demand.
Yeah. So,
But it's gonna be better.
lean on your buddy, Judd.
He's been leaning.
You know,
Yeah.
the entire valley is being strangled with, you know, affordable workforce housing.
Yep.
Rental and ownership. You know, that's one of the reasons there are 143 people on a list. Because they're on a list in 15 different places up and down the valley.
Yes.
Because there aren't any, there isn't enough available housing everywhere in the valley. So again, over time, depending on what happens elsewhere in the valley, it's gonna have an effect on how much of that 385 units we really will really need. I mean, I do think that's a movable number.
Well, if that Roaring Fork Housing Authority ever happens,
Yep,
that might be an option, but
yep.
just even looking at Glenwood Springs and Carbondale and then you got the Willits thing going on.
Even if
That's still not gonna be enough.
the tree development in Elgibel happens, there's a lot of, on paper, there are a lot of workforce housing units.
Now people are saying it's not affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
that's
people-
another part of it, yeah, so,
Right.
you know, I don't know the answer. We just don't know the answer. Give them
but I
land
mean,
and they'll
these-
put something on it, let alone
They're all
traffic.
things that have
Talk
to be
about David Myler
kind of
and-
kept as
Yeah.
moving
and
parts
Bill's
in this
presentation.
Yes.
whole process.
Yeah, and the great thing is, it's not like we're asking to build 383 units today. I mean, that's the number today.
Gotta start.
If we built a third of it, if we built 100, we'll do another assessment, and we'll have better ideas, we'll have the right mixes, but we'll start making progress towards that.
I think you should proceed. That's me, I didn't think everyone's in
Well,
consensus.
unless you guys say, hell no, we're gonna keep rolling down this path and get some things going, so.
I think it's great.
No, I think it's a path we need to go.
We need to push, and we need to push Pickens County.
I make a motion to adjourn, if
We don't
there
have
is.
to, no,
We
we
don't
don't-
have to.
no, we're
We can
done.
just walk out when
Yeah,
we
we could
want.
just,
See ya.
Put your bag
is dinner ready?
It's that way every night now. It's that way every night,
I know.
every meeting. You can walk out anytime you want.
I know, that's what you told me.
That's how you make the papers.
Good night, Alyssa.
Good night, Alyssa. Bye-bye.
See you.